So there's a lot in there, though, that you said, because there's a lot of lines that are crossed. It's a difference between assisting Ukrainians in interdicting and destroying the nuclear weapons and us doing it via NATO. That's a big red line. And that is what a lot of people are worried about, because they're content with a proxy war. They're content with funding, giving them incredible munitions that allow them to do incredible things because, arsenal of democracy and all that. But they don't want the U.S. or NATO to get directly involved. So what is our...
Who doesn't want the U.S. or NATO to get directly involved?
I think the majority of people who do not want the United States troops on the ground in Ukraine. I think that's a line that a lot of people are not willing to cross. They're perfectly happy to fund them and help them, but actually getting our guys there and fighting Russian troops is not on the plate at the moment for a lot of people. Now, if you're saying that you disagree, that you think the majority of American people will be behind that, I support the Ukrainians all down the line. I do not support putting U.S. troops on the ground to fight Russians at this moment.
But then you don't support Ukrainians all down the line. You support Ukrainians partway down the line.
No.
And the third thing I would say is that what Jim Mattis and I learned during doing the public surveys for our books, Warriors and Citizens, about American attitudes about the military, is that American public attitudes about the use of force are incredibly malleable. And what they depend on is the political leadership of the country doing two things. First, expending the political capital to explain to my mom why this matters for Americans. And second, demonstrating that they have a plan for achieving it that makes our interests and our resourcing aligned.
This is vexing. I mean, on the one hand, if you permit, well, here are two things that seem to me true. And this is why nuclear theory, let alone when we're facing the reality of it, why nuclear theory is so complicated and difficult. On the one hand, true, if you permit the possession by the other side of nuclear weapons to paralyze you, you may as well just give up right now. Item one. Item two, if you ignore the possession by the other side of weapons that could take out Boston, or more likely in the short term, some big city in the Donbass or even Kiev, then you're just a fool. And maneuvering between those two is not easy.
No. When she said that one thing that she and Mattis had learned was that the American attitudes toward military engagement were malleable, I got a little shiver up my spine, because, okay, that's true, but it does make it sound as though we're going to pull all the instruments of propaganda in order to get people to be on board with this, but it's difficult now. People are on, the general attitude in this country, I think, is to help Ukraine. And the general attitude is as such because what people initially saw was a war in what they believed to be sort of they could identify with all of these moms and their kids and their pink backpacks going to the train to run to escape Russians. They got that. They got the human tragedy element. The more they schooled up on it and learned about it, the more that they thought the Russians were, big surprise, being aggressive and bullies and meanies. And so presented with that horrible human tragedy at the beginning. If the Russians had taken Kiev in 3 days, we wouldn't be talking about this, but they didn't. And so they're allowed to flower, to grow this American attitude that we ought to help them in their struggle. And we've been unstinting in that. Nobody's been, yes, people have been saying, oh my God, they just gave another 1.6 billion, another 10 billion. And yet, we're not helping our own people. I get that whole argument, but we're committed. We're in, we're giving them the good stuff and it's working. So now to turn around to people and to somehow make malleable their attitudes to get them to believe that the next necessary step is American troops after what we've been through in the last 10, 15 years, I think is delusional. What is the end stage exactly of this, of American engagement with Russian forces? Are we going to do another nation building thing? Because we've got a nation there that's ready, practically a cold bar of Turkish taffy you could hit with a hammer and would break into a variety of constituent republics, 12 time zones worse. Are we going to nation build Russia right now exactly? No, we're not. No, there's no appetite whatsoever for war with Russia.
Ricochet. Join the conversation.